$700 million. That's what hung in the balance when the system crashed. Ethan Alexander, billionaire CEO of Alexander Financial, watched his empire crumble in real time. His head analyst couldn't fix it. His IT team was frozen. The German investors were already closing their briefcases. But there was one person in that room who could save everything. The woman nobody saw coming. The janitor. 43 seconds. That's all it took Olivia Chen to do what an entire department couldn't. She didn't ask permission. She didn't explain. She just fixed it. The presentation resumed. The Germans smiled, and Ethan Alexander realized he'd been sitting on a gold mine disguised as a mop bucket. But this story, it doesn't start with triumph. It starts hours earlier, in the darkness before dawn, with a woman who saw things nobody else could see. Let me take you back to the moment everything changed. To 5 a.m. on a Tuesday, when the world was still asleep and the truth was wide awake. Before we continue, leave in the comment which country you are watching from. And at the end, don't forget to like the story and subscribe to this channel. Olivia Chen wasn't supposed to be touching that computer. She was supposed to empty the trash, dust the shelves, and disappear before the sun came up. But something stopped her that morning. Something she couldn't ignore. On Ethan Alexander's screen, buried in a sea of numbers, was a pattern. Or rather, a break in the pattern. A wrongness that made her skin crawl. She described it later as visual itching, a compulsion so powerful it was almost painful. The numbers weren't symmetrical. They didn't align. And for someone whose brain craved order like oxygen, that meant only one thing. Someone had made a catastrophic mistake. She never heard him come in. Ethan Alexander had a habit of arriving before his staff. He liked the quiet, the control. What he didn't expect was to find his cleaning lady sitting at his desk, rewriting his company's financial projections. Most CEOs would have called security. Ethan Alexander did something different. He asked a question. "Show me," he said. So, she did. Olivia walked him through it with trembling hands. A misplaced decimal, a transposed figure, small errors that compounded into a $700 million disaster that nobody, not his CFO, not his audit team, not the Ivy League analysts had caught. But she had. From a computer screen she wasn't supposed to touch, using skills she'd taught herself from YouTube tutorials and library books. Ethan asked her how she knew, and Olivia told him the truth. "The numbers looked wrong," she said. "They didn't fit together. It made my brain itch." She touched her temple. "I can't stop seeing it until it's fixed." Ethan learned more in 5 minutes than in his entire MBA. Olivia had no degree, no certifications, no credentials, just an obsessive need for symmetry and a mind that processed patterns like a supercomputer. She'd been teaching herself advanced accounting for 3 years, not for ambition, but because chaos was unbearable to her. The wrong angle of a picture frame could ruin her day. A crooked stack of papers felt like nails on a chalkboard. But in the world of numbers, she was an artist, and Ethan Alexander just found his Michelangelo pushing a mop. Ethan didn't waste time. By Monday, Olivia had a desk. By Tuesday, she was in analyst meetings. And by Wednesday, she'd made enemies. Jack Henry, Ethan's star analyst, wasn't impressed. To him, Olivia was a charity case, a pet project, proof that Ethan had gone soft. When she corrected his presentation in front of the entire team, Jack didn't thank her. He smiled tightly and promised to double-check the data. But Ethan checked first. Olivia was right. She was always right. And Jack Henry wasn't used to being wrong. Over 3 weeks, Olivia saved Alexander Financial $135 million. She found errors in contracts nobody had reviewed. She spotted patterns in trading data that predicted market shifts. Her visual itching was a superpower, but powers always come with a price. She couldn't stop fixing things. Crooked frames, misaligned chairs, coffee cups placed at wrong angles. Her colleagues called her strange, obsessive. Victor Marsh, the CFO, called her something else, a threat. Because, in a company built on hierarchy and credentials, Olivia Chen was living proof that you didn't need an MBA to be brilliant. You just needed to see what everyone else was blind to. The Berlin deal was Alexander Financial's biggest play in a decade. $2 billion. 30 new international accounts. The kind of deal that makes or breaks legacies. Ethan trusted Jack to handle the presentation. After all, Jack had credentials. Jack had experience. Jack had everything Olivia didn't, except the ability to fix what went wrong. When the system crashed, Jack froze. Every second of silence cost millions. The Germans were legendary for their impatience. One had already stood to leave. That's when Ethan made eye contact with Olivia across the room, a silent plea, and she answered. 43 seconds. In less than a minute, Olivia did what Jack couldn't do in 10. She bypassed corrupted code, rerouted the data stream, and salvaged the presentation without breaking a sweat. The Germans were impressed. They'd just watched a miracle. A janitor turned analyst saving a $2 billion deal with the composure of a surgeon. Ethan Alexander felt something he rarely felt, gratitude. And Jack Henry felt something he felt far too often, rage. But Victor felt something else entirely, opportunity. Victor Marsh had been waiting for this moment. The sabotage accusation was calculated, precise, and delivered in front of everyone who mattered. He had evidence. Olivia had accessed the system that morning to check alignments, to ensure perfection. But Victor twisted it into malice. She's been resented since day one, he said. This was revenge. She crashed the system to prove we needed her. It was brilliant. And it was poison. Olivia tried to explain. But Victor was louder, more credible. And then, she made a mistake. She looked at Ethan Alexander and waited for him to save her. Ethan Alexander said nothing, not one word in her defense. Later, he'd tell himself he had reasons. The Germans were still in the building. The company's reputation was fragile. Victor was a board member. Challenging him publicly would cause instability. He'd fix it later, privately, quietly. These were the lies successful men tell themselves when they choose comfort over courage. But in that moment, Olivia Chen didn't hear reasons. She heard silence. And silence is the cruelest answer of all. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply straightened her tablet on the table one last time, because even in betrayal, chaos was unbearable, and walked out. The door closed softly, and Ethan Alexander lost the best thing that had ever happened to his company. The office fell apart slowly, not in dramatic fashion, just entropy. Chairs stopped being perfectly aligned. Papers piled up. Picture frames tilted at wrong angles. And the numbers, God, the numbers. Errors crept in like weeds, small at first, a decimal here, a transposed figure there. Nothing catastrophic, just wrong. And Ethan couldn't unsee it anymore. He'd inherited Olivia's curse, the visual itching, the need for order. He straightened frames compulsively, aligned his pens, checked reports obsessively. His team thought he was losing his mind, but Ethan knew the truth. He wasn't losing his mind. He'd lost something far more valuable. Ethan found her address, drove to her apartment 3 times in 2 weeks. And 3 times, he couldn't press the buzzer. What would he even say? I'm sorry I threw you to the wolves to protect my reputation. I'm sorry I valued my image more than your dignity. The truth was simpler and uglier. Ethan Alexander was a coward. He'd built an empire on calculated risks. But when it mattered most, he chose safety. He chose silence. And now he was haunted by the ghost of the woman he betrayed. Every crooked frame was her absence. Every uncaught error was her loss. He'd traded a genius for comfort. And comfort, he was learning, was the most expensive thing he'd ever bought. 6 months later, Alexander Financial was still profitable, still successful. The Berlin deal went through. Jack kept his job. Victor kept his suspicions quiet. Everything looked fine from the outside. But Ethan Alexander knew better. He knew what was missing, and he knew he'd never find it again. Olivia Chen went back to cleaning offices. Different building, different company. She didn't try to climb corporate ladders anymore, but she never stopped learning, never stopped seeing patterns, never stopped fixing what was broken, even if no one was watching. Because her gift wasn't about recognition, it was about truth, and truth doesn't need an audience. Meanwhile, Ethan lived with his choice, every day, every crooked frame, every missed error, every ghost of what could have been. He'd learned the hardest lesson success can teach. Some people are invisible until they're gone, and by then, it's far too late to see what they were worth. There's no happy ending here. No redemption arc where Ethan finds Olivia and makes things right, because this isn't that kind of story. This is a story about the cost of conformity, about how we ignore brilliance when it doesn't come in the package we expect, about how fear makes cowards of even powerful men. Olivia Chen was extraordinary, but she was invisible until she wasn't. And by the time everyone saw her value, it was too late. The frame stayed crooked, the office stayed imperfect, and Ethan Alexander learned to live with ghosts. Subscribe.